In the Vatican, everything is abuzz for a historic event. Pope Leo XIV, just 4 months after his election, is about to present his first apostolic exhortation. The anticipation and interest in this text are immense. There is talk of a suggestive title, Dilexit Te, which strongly recalls Pope Francis's last encyclical, Dilexit Nos. The connection between He loved us and He loved you clearly highlights the desire to continue a coherent spiritual line, almost as if to continue an already established tradition. The choice of a title when it comes to papal documents is never made by chance. Every word used signals a precise pastoral intention, reflecting a particular vision of the Church and the world. This text, whose publication is expected in the coming weeks, marks the first official statement of Pope Leo XIV. It is the moment when his voice is heard, in an era full of expectations and uncertainties. All of this unfolds after Francis passed away last April, closing the chapter on his remarkable 12-year papacy. He became known for his tireless advocacy for the poor, his compassion for migrants, and his efforts to bring the Church closer to those on the margins. Through bold reforms and a humble approach, Francis inspired a renewed focus on mercy, inclusion, and social justice within the Catholic Church. The entire Church and the world are watching closely, as this new document is seen as a signal of great importance and a first step in the new papacy. Many wonder if the new pope will continue along the path of his predecessor, or, while maintaining some points of continuity, will decide to take a different direction. Different communities hope for reforms, while others anticipate challenges ahead, making this transition a moment of both hope and uncertainty for Catholics worldwide. Robert Prevost, now Leo XIV, represents a turning point that already marks a historic moment. In fact, he is the first pontiff originally from the United States of America. His election, which took place on May 8 by the will of the cardinals, has sparked astonishment and emotion, not only because he comes from a region never before represented, but also for his character, always little inclined to the spotlight, and who now, suddenly, finds himself a protagonist on the world stage. His personality mixes new ideas with old ways. For one thing, the big deal about him not being from the usual European area breaks a very old tradition. For another, he chose a name that famous popes from the past already had. This makes us think of strength and keeping things going with the Catholic Church, showing that it's not trying to completely change history. Many observers have noted that Pope Leo XIV seems to prefer a less spectacular approach, one less focused on striking gestures and more on substance. His style is quieter, more reserved, and perhaps more contemplative than his predecessors, but it is no less impactful. This was one of the elements that made Francis so recognizable. Yet, in his homilies, Leo XIV continues to place great emphasis on social and spiritual issues, echoing Francis, but with his own tone. The real question is whether he will manage to stand out with a truly personal voice, or if his pontificate will simply be perceived as a continuation of the previous one. In any case, his figure is already charged with strong symbolic value, and his actions are closely watched by both the faithful and the world. A new generation pope from a different continent now steps into the heart of the Vatican, bringing fresh perspective to an ancient institution. He leads a church whose roots stretch back thousands of years, yet faces challenges that are ever-present and urgent. The enduring connection with the poor remains the central challenge for every modern papacy, demanding both compassion and action. Leo XIV appears determined to make this his starting point, following in the footsteps of his predecessor. Pope Francis often broke with tradition, choosing humility over luxury and reaching out to society's most vulnerable. He gave up the privileges of the apostolic palace, opting for a simpler life and direct contact with the marginalized. By sharing meals with the homeless and visiting the forgotten corners of Rome, he set a powerful example, one that Leo XIV now seeks to continue and expand. His statements, strongly critical of the global economic system, have highlighted a mindset that abandons the most vulnerable, and reduces individuals to mere cogs in a machine focused on profit. Now, everyone is waiting to hear the new American Pope's stance on these issues, which, from the very first days of his papacy, he wanted to emphasize that the Church must be close to the last. However, this focus on the excluded leads a more traditional view to question a fundamental issue. How far can the Church go to promote togetherness and fairness in society without the risk of just focusing on human efforts and forgetting about Christ? If you like our news work and believe in being open and truthful, we invite you to help us out. Everything we create comes from hard work, study, and passion, and all our projects are only supported by our own efforts. Your help lets us keep doing this important work. Thank you very much. Getting close to those who are left out if it's not based on the truth of the gospel risks becoming just empty words, more like a political plan than a real show of faith. The new pope will need to show he can keep a delicate balance between kindness and staying true to Catholic values, making sure the Church's special mission doesn't get mixed up with what the everyday world expects. Just as the third global meeting on human togetherness is starting at the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV has chosen to stand out with a speech that's already causing a lot of talk. In front of everyone, he suggested a pact of humanity, an agreement not based on money or power but on care, dedication, and trusting each other. At first glance, these statements seem to naturally continue his opening speech as Pope, but in reality they open the door to much deeper questions. Saying that brotherhood is the truest form of closeness means suggesting a way of expressing oneself that anyone can understand, a language that can even get past religious differences. Yet the Pope wanted to add something that breaks away from the usual exchange of ideas. For those who believe, seeing others as brothers and sisters means seeing a mystery, like God's mark, which shines not just in the poor and refugees, but also in those who disagree with us. It's an unexpected invitation, because it pushes believers to see the face of Christ even where our first thought might be to see only an enemy. The wish for everyone to be welcomed as brothers and sisters brings up a big question, especially for those who stick to old ways. How far can the Church go in including everyone without messing up the main message of the gospel? Pope Leo XIV's invitation might seem like a continuation of that idea of brotherhood, which in the past caused disagreements. Today this challenge once again makes us think deeply and calls for clear answers. Pope Leo XIV's time as Pope looks like a balancing act. He wants to keep going on the path that's already been set, but he also needs to show his own unique style. On one hand, he clearly chose to follow in Pope Francis's footsteps and keep focusing on those who are most in need. This clearly shows he doesn't want to break away from the recent past. On the other hand, his call for people to find common ground opens up possibilities that could start a new chapter in the Church's teachings, perhaps with more focus on language everyone can understand and engaging with global society. The release of will be the key moment to understand if it's a spiritual text, similar to his predecessor's last letter, or if it will also include thoughts on political and social matters. Either way, the Church is facing a complex choice. To declare brotherhood among all people, but without falling into a simple earthly humanism, which could take away the Catholic mission's deepest spiritual part. This balance will be key for Pope Leo XIV's future journey, through good times and challenges, trying to bring together respect for old ways with a desire to welcome new things. The world is watching to see if his voice will stand out clearly or if it will get lost among all the other voices we hear today. What do you think? If you liked the video, write amen in the comments. God bless you.